Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this afternoon, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
We begin with the ancient words drawn from Psalms. Adonai, ma'adam v'teda ehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu, adam lahevel doma, yamav kitzel over. בבוקר יציץ וחלף, לערב ימולל ויבש, תשב אנוש עד דקה, ותאמר שובו בני אדם. God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and yet in the evening fades. Return, O mortals, you say. Were that we were wise, that we understood where we were going. For when we die, we do not carry physical things away with us, but mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright, for our good name does remain, and they will have peace. God, you redeem the soul of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be obsolete. The writer of the book of Ecclesiastes, known as Kohelet, wrote words that have become incredibly familiar in our modern era. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. Perhaps Kohelet was right in this assessment that there is a time for everything, including death. And yet, even if that is correct, that doesn't erase the ache and the sorrow and the need for acknowledgement and consolation. The time of mourning is a complicated one filled with so many emotions and memories, and thus we've begun our service with Psalms, linking Rochelle Pepper's life to the millennial-old tradition of our people Israel. And we continue with words of Psalms, if you'll join me as you wish, in the English of Psalm 23. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God leads me down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. We have an understanding of our own biology that is better than of any preceding generation. We have seized our enhanced appreciation of physics to travel to the moon and send satellites beyond our solar system. And yet, despite Kohelet's attempt at keeping or imposing order, with every secret revealed, the marvels and mysteries of our world seem to grow deeper and deeper. Kohelet also wrote, Ein adam shalit b'ruach ve'ein shliton b'yom hamavet. No one has authority over life. There is no authority over the day of death. Perhaps it is knowing our own limitations and recognizing what is far beyond comprehension that we can become closest to the divine. In our Torah cycle this week, we begin reading about the building of the ancient tabernacle. The details are extensive and frankly mundane. Many rabbis have compared them to IKEA instructions. But the instruction for the structure of the cabinet that holds the tablets of law given at Sinai, what we would call an ark today, stands out as a reminder that the details do matter. Tzipita oto zahav tahor. Overlay it with pure gold, the Israelites are commanded. Mibayit umichutz, inside and out, you are to overlay it with this pure gold. At first glance, the command is perplexing. Isn't lining the inside of the cabinet with such a precious and pure resource wasteful? Why the need for a pure gold lining inside the cabinet where no one sees? Our Talmudic sages suggest that this instruction is to serve as an important lesson regarding human integrity. The inside must be identical to the outside. Expressions of kindness and goodness must not be measured solely by public outward gestures. The instruction to take as much care with the inside of the ark as the outside demands that our actions be backed by inner conviction and thoughtful compassion. Due to COVID and then more recently her health, I only had the opportunity to get to know Rochelle briefly during my first couple years at then Makor Shalom, now Kol Ami. Those few interactions, coupled with the loving manner in which her husband Alan, her sons Dan and Jeremy, and their wives Sarah and Melody shared their thoughts and memories, make it clear to me that Rochelle Pepper exemplified this instruction regarding inner conviction and integrity. She was golden. For sure, we know her outsides were golden. No one can argue that. As Alan may share in a moment in his remarks, her striking beauty was evident even as a young teenager when she first captured his attention in March of 1959. But equally unarguable is how golden Rochelle was on the inside. What made her pure gold was her empathy for others, her ability to turn her challenging experiences into healing moments, her inherent kindness and compassion, her warmth, and her desire to make others feel loved, accepted, and whole. Rochelle's early years weren't easy, I'm told. She moved a lot, living at times, at least in Silver Spring, Maryland, where I'm told she developed a southern draw a little bit, and at other times in Queens with her mom. She and her siblings, also Alan, her brother, Susan, Zecher Livracha, grew up in then what would have been described as a broken home. That meant her parents were divorced. Rochelle described it to some as a dysfunctional upbringing. She was, it seemed, the one who took care of everyone else, especially her mother. Yet Rochelle didn't dwell on the challenges. Instead, she had a way of turning those early experiences into motivation for supporting others and creating an environment for healing. Rochelle was super intelligent, creative, and resilient, which allowed her to create and nurture a stable and loving environment for herself and her family. Indeed, we can take a look at her family, at the love they share, at their connections, their commitment to each other. It serves as a testament to that effort, and even the welcoming embrace they've extended to newly found family members in recent years. It speaks to Rochelle's effort at creating wholeness and healing. Indeed, she made nurturing, healthy, loving relationships among her family an absolute priority. As Dan shared and Jeremy agreed, Rochelle devoted herself to not only making sure their needs were met, but she provided a safe and supportive environment that allowed them to find and follow their own paths. She extended this enthusiasm for supporting her sons unconditionally to her grandchildren. To quote Sarah, they were her everything. She was incredibly proud of each of you, Zach, Jacob, Sam, Stella, and Julia. And above all else, she wanted you to feel whole and loved for who you were, for who you are as individuals. Professionally, Rochelle held a lot of jobs, but she brought these same gifts in particular to DYFS, now known as Child Protection and Permanency. where she worked as a caseworker and later as a director, which is quite extraordinary given she didn't have a master's in social work. We might wonder how Rochelle came upon her inner strength and ability to love so fully. I expect much of it derived simply from who she was. It was part of her core. She was, as the rabbis teach, golden inside and out. But I expect it was also nurtured as much by her partner in life, Alan. Alan shared with me that Rochelle completed him. He, in turn, for sure, completed her. The modern mystic Rabbi Lawrence Kushner views each person's life as containing the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. For some, there are more pieces, others less. Some seem to be born with a nearly completed puzzle. For others, the puzzle is more difficult to assemble. But no one has within themselves all the pieces to their puzzle. Sometimes we know it and sometimes we don't. But when we present our piece, which may be worthless to ourselves, to another for whom the piece fits, we create a tikkun, a divine correction, thus allowing a sense of godliness into the world. Together for well over 60 years, 7 years of dating, Rochelle was only 13 and a half when they met, and 56 years of marriage. Rochelle and Alan grew a relationship based on love, mutual respect, kindness, and equal partnership. They completed each other's puzzle in a way that certainly brought beautiful balance into their home and into the world. I'd say they brought godliness to us all. Loss is always challenging. Watching a beloved life partner slowly deteriorate is hardship. The grace, compassion, and tolerance Alan extended to Rochelle is indicative of the integrity, that pure gold inside and out of their partnership. Alan, as you shared Rochelle and Rochelle 2.0, she was blessed to be the recipient of your diligent care. You reflected back to her all of the love, the respect, the support, and compassion that she has given to you and to so many others over the expanse of her 77 years. That is nothing short of kedusha, of holiness. Almost 8 decades ago, Rochelle Pepper began her journey through life, a life that had challenges, but was also very, very good, golden, inside and out. Today, we mark the end of Rochelle's life and bid her farewell. But always remember, the author of Song of Songs tells us, Ki hazach hamavet she'ahava, stronger than death is love. The loss felt today is evident of the incredible love Rochelle gave and the love you shared together. Death cannot erase that love as long as you remember, and as long as you strive to incorporate her life lessons into yours. Remember her by being as she was, a loving, generous, and golden pillar of strength in our world. Ruth Whitman wrote, "If my boundary stops here, I have children to draw new maps of the world. They will draw the lines of my face. They will speak my words thinking they invented them. They will invent me, and I will be planted again and again. I will wake in the eyes of their children's children, and they will speak my words." So I first invite Alan, Rochelle's beloved husband and life partner, followed by representatives of her children and grandchildren, Dan and Sarah.
I didn't think I was going to cry until I stood up, but Cantor Harrison, that was tough. It was quite something. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. And I wanted this for Rochelle. I wanted as many people as would come to just show their respect and their love for her. And seeing you all here just means a great deal to me. It's a shame she can't see it, because she would have loved to see this, and all the people that cared for her. And some of you traveled some big distances, and I just want to say I really appreciate that. It's just an expression of the love that you had for her. I wasn't going to write it down, but I knew that I'd be so emotional I couldn't get it out straight if I didn't write it down, so I did. And some of this will just put some icing and some flavor on what the cantor already said. I first saw Rochelle in the Bronx in March of 1959. I was 18 years old. She came there from Queens, where she lived with her mother, to attend a friend's Sweet 16 party. Since she had lived in Silver Springs, Maryland for a number of years with her parents before they divorced, she had a slight but charming Southern accent. She was hanging around the neighborhood where I lived in the Bronx, and I was instantly captivated by everything about her. So I crashed the Sweet 16 party and hung around her all night. She went to the bathroom a lot, and I learned later she said it was just to get away from me. She told me she was 15 and a half. 6 weeks later, I gave her an ankle bracelet, and we were going steady. Although both her parents were Jewish, but they only had festive meals on the holidays and did not belong to a synagogue, my father considered her a shiksa and was not happy with my choice, since she had also come, as the cantor mentioned, from a broken family. Remember that expression? My father, Moshe, was heavy into all the Jewish rituals and had little tolerance for those that did not. Of course, once he got to know her better, he liked her and then loved her for who she was. She was sweet, she was sensitive, she was gentle, very, very aware of other people's feelings, very feminine, very caring, and frankly, a lot of what I was not. In my mind, she completed me. As our relationship progressed, my feelings deepened. She was totally honest, full of integrity, trusting, and trustworthy. She also always smelled delicious. 2 years into our relationship, she told me she was really 15. And 15 and a half, and not 17 and a half. But it didn't matter at that time, since I was so much in love with her. So we started our relationship when she was 13, and I was 18, if you're doing the math. I was going to add, Rochelle at 13 was at least like a 16-year-old in her maturity and her appearance, and I at 18, at least from the maturity end, was certainly no more than 16. So it worked. We got married in January of 1966, while Rochelle was between semesters in her junior year at Queens College. There was a double blizzard in New York that Sunday, really one that followed the other. You could look it up. And the caterer called us that morning and wanted to cancel because the entire highway system of New York City was officially shut down. We were in Queens, the reception was out in Long Island. Talk about stress. We proceeded anyway, and only 3 of the 131 invited guests did not show. And a number of them came from Baltimore. After a 1-week honeymoon, we came back to our Forest Hills, Queens apartment, and I got up to go to work the next morning, and I turned on the light in the bedroom. Rochelle kind of yelled, "What are you doing?" After that, I got dressed in darkness for the rest of my working life. Welcome to marriage. At this time, Rochelle's mother, a single divorced woman, moved to LA, and we visited during my, at what they gave me at that time, 2-week summer vacations. And of course, with Rochelle's aversion to cold weather, she wanted to live in California, and so did I. So I got a job with a small pharmaceutical company in Pasadena, and with Rochelle pregnant with Daniel in 1969, we flew first class on the company's dime on TWA from New York to LA. Rochelle was too nauseous with her pregnancy to partake of the Chateaubriand on the cart being rolled down the aisle. That's what first class was back then. And she was nauseous as they were asking her, and they were slicing it right there in the aisle. Do you want rare or medium or well done? And they had different sections of that stewardess would cut from. I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it today, what an airline flight is, even first class. It was just incredible. And she was nauseous, and she couldn't, the smell was making her nauseous. What a shame. So Daniel was born late in 1969, and Jeremy was born in 1972. And all of us were up front for 13 Rose Bowl parades, one of the great, awesome experiences of our life. We lived in California for 13 wonderful years. Rochelle participated in their nursery schools, and when they were older, she worked as a realtor for Century 21. We had great vacations with the boys in the many national parks on the West, camping trips on the beach, and a lot more. A great part of our lives. We left California when I was transferred to company headquarters in Delaware in 1982, and we bought a house in Cherry Hill. We heard a lot of exclamations of, "You left California for New Jersey?" I still hear it. In New Jersey, Rochelle worked for DIFAS as a caseworker and then for the Mental Health Association associated with Fort Dix, and trained volunteers for how to assist dysfunctional families. She was really good at that, and all of her volunteers loved her. We joined McCore Shalom and became part of Chavarim, a social group where Rochelle cemented our relationships with 12 other couples, and that special bond continues to this day. Rochelle was co-chair of Women in Spirituality, where she developed even more wonderful relationships. When I retired from my company in 2000, which by then had grown into AstraZeneca, that little company in Pasadena, amazing. Rochelle then immediately retired as well, saying, "I'm not going to get up early to go to walk while you're sleeping." It was instant. Upon retiring, we did lots of traveling, the first being a mission tour of Israel in March of 2000, which was incredible. Jeremy and Daniel both married and gave us 5 amazing grandchildren. Dan's kids are Zachary, who is 20, and Jacob, 19, and are both in college. Jeremy and Sarah had Sam, who was 17 and a junior in high school. and then twin identical girls, first in the family, who are 12. All 5 never stopped being the loving focus of Rochelle's life. Now I get into Rochelle 2.0. Bear with me. I'll talk now of Rochelle's dementia, which began mildly about 4 years ago, with some difficulties of organizing a suitcase. It took her 2 to 3 days to pack a weekend bag for a trip. About a year and a half later, while we were in Wilmington, North Carolina, visiting Jeremy's family, we slept in 2 different bedrooms in their house, which turned out to be very traumatic for Rochelle, not being in our usual king-size bed where we always slept close to each other at home. She thought I was a new person in her life, with no memory of our past life. She also had a problem with doctors who asked her simple memory questions, and she was embarrassed when she didn't know the simple answers. What's today's date? Who's the president? Draw a circle. She couldn't do anything. That further developed into where she would be asking the same questions over and over, to me, to anyone that knew her, losing her perception on time, having physical challenges with opening packages, forgetting what I told her minutes ago, certainly what I told her yesterday, and a lot more. I then started preparing all meals because she was awkward, if not a bit dangerous, in the kitchen. And she was fine with that. She would praise me and say what a wonderful cook Alan is, and never ever saw it as a deficiency in herself. She never saw any of her foibles as a deficiency in herself. That's the silver lining of dementia, and it's quite typical. It made it a lot easier. But God knows, I quickly learned and would not confront her with any of her shortcomings. As a result, I mean, I supported her, I agreed with her, I played her game, we laughed about it, we made light of everything. It was Rochelle 2.0. And I loved her. I loved 2.0 as much as 1.0. She was weird and strange and had crazy traits, but I loved her. I mean, why wouldn't I? Last summer, after getting a concern from the dentist on her dental cleaning, I kind of figured out that she really wasn't brushing her teeth, or certainly wasn't brushing them very well. I tried to make sure she brushed her teeth that night. She didn't know how to do it. She just didn't know how to do it. This was like last August. Soon after that, my daughter-in-law, Sarah, tried assisting her in taking a shower because Rochelle was, I just had no awareness of her taking a shower. It was becoming a concern. And Sarah, who she loves even more than you'd love a daughter, she was totally trusting of her, and allowed Sarah to go into the bathroom with her and take her into the shower. And Sarah got her into the shower, and Rochelle didn't know what to do. When Sarah told me this, we all cried. It was one of many tearful sessions as Rochelle progressed through this nightmare. But she wasn't upset. Thank God. I mean, she wasn't upset. It just was, she didn't know what to do, and you wanted to help her, fine. But it's blows me away. As I said, this was the first of many, many crying moments for me and the family as the dementia progressed. And Rochelle was not particularly aware of any of this as a problem, so lucky for her. I also learned from all these experiences to be calm, non-judgmental, and loving, even making light of her shortcoming. Again, she was not upset with herself with any of this. Quite happy as long as we were all light about it. I considered her to be, as I said before, Rochelle 2.0, and honestly, I never stopped loving the new version. I joined an Alzheimer's Association support group last summer, which was incredibly valuable to me, and I got to share my experiences and get good advice from other spousal caregivers. They helped me to know it was time to get her into ardent memory care. And she went in there in October, only 4 months ago. She did well. I mean, after a brief initial day or two, which was very difficult and not uncommon, she completely adapted at Arden. She was happy. She was assisting with activities. She was having gibberish conversations with others, and totally fine. But both people having these gibberish combinations, they seemed to understand each other and relate back and forth to each other, and it was wonderful. I mean, who would have guessed? But, you know, and that's, you know, all that I ever wanted, as well as the family, was for her to be happy and comfortable, and she was. And she wasn't in there more than about a month when she unfortunately just slipped and fell in her room during the night. I imagine she was getting up to go to the bathroom, and she broke her kneecap and she fractured her elbow. So then there was a hospital bout for surgery on the elbow and a big cast and a brace on her knee, where they did surgery on her elbow and then the brace on her knee. And of course she was immobile. So immobile that only after a few days she became all impacted and developed sepsis. A miracle she didn't die. So she was in the hospital 6 days in the ICU over Thanksgiving, and again, and she came out of it. She was okay. She was okay from the surgeries, from the sepsis. But from that point on, any trauma in dementia is very, very serious. And she really, really went on to a downhill trajectory from that point on. She really started eating much, much less. And it kind of developed, and from what I learned about the way dementia works is she wasn't getting the brain signals that she was hungry, so she didn't get nourished to eat. And then that kind of progressed, again, from dementia into not being able to open her mouth fully. I mean, the motor abilities just start to go away. So she couldn't physically open her mouth properly to take food in. For a while, she was using a straw. She got some Ensure in, and that continued to diminish and lost a tremendous amount of weight, And it got to the point literally only a week ago, last Sunday, she had developed some bed sores which, because she wasn't getting any nutrition to speak of, they don't heal. And they got very painful. And the doctor had already pre-authorized morphine if she needed it. And last Sunday, I was sitting at her bedside, and she was really, really wincing in pain. And I had the nurse start the morphine. They just syringe it directly into her mouth. And soon after that, she fell asleep, and she just continued to sleep until Thursday night when she died. So we knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time. It doesn't take the final pain away when she finally left. But that's how it went. So I just want to say, if any of you are thinking of doing any kind of a contribution to consider the Alzheimer's Association, and concurrently with Rochelle's love for children, she was an avid contributor to Philabundance, which feeds a lot of kids that are underprivileged. So between those two, if you find it in your heart to do anything, then, just consider that. And now on a lighter note, some of you know Sherry Wolkoff. About 3:30 in the morning, Sherry sent me an email. Actually, we talked yesterday for a long time with Mark Wolkoff. And Sherry and Rochelle had a good friendship because they were both kind of kvetches. And they knew it. They knew it. They knew it of each other. Yeah, and it was a common bond between them. Oh, here it is. So Sherry sent me this, and this was her little forward. Hi, sorry to be so late with this. Well, luckily I didn't have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to read it. But I suggest you read through this. I placed in occasional words and emphasis, and I also attached a separate newspaper article about a tea party hosted by Rochelle, and I made a copy of it, which we can look at later. So here's what she said. Unfortunately, my husband and I are in Florida and can't be here in person, but I've asked Alan to speak my words. Rochelle, my bright, funny, playful, and very dear friend. My daughter Lauren, upon seeing Rochelle driving down the street in a convertible with her gorgeous red curls tucked under a big floppy hat, said she looked just like a little Souls doll. Indeed, she was my soulmate, my partner in world-class complaining, sometimes making me look like an angel in comparison. I mean no disrespect, and butts in caps, but at a restaurant, the food was never hot enough, or seasoned enough, or too spicy, or too hard to chew. The room was always too hot or too cold. The chair was definitely too firm or not firm enough for her back. I secretly felt the same way, but most of the time I let her be the fall guy. And most of the time it worked. Unfortunately, now the title of chief complainer goes to me. I say all this with love, for Rochelle was so much more than a complainer. She was a devoted friend who always had your back, a loving wife, and a fiercely proud mother and grandmother who made sure her family was well cared for. She was also a voracious reader and lover of films, ballet, and theater. And I'll bet you didn't know that she could serve a proper high tea, replete with scones, clotted cream, and lemon curd. It even made the newspaper, and I have copies. She sent copies. I wish Rochelle an eternal seat with just the right firmness, a room that's always the perfect temperature, and a heavenly veal marsala dish that's perfectly prepared. May it all be exactly how you want it to be. Rest in peace, my friend, Sherry Wolkoff. So she felt about Rochelle like I did, like those of you that knew her did. She was a special person. She was special at 13, and she was special right to the end. So thank you for listening.
Thank you all for being here today. Not only does it really mean so much to the family, all your love and support, but I assure you that Mom feels that too, and she knows you're here. Thanks. You heard a lot already from Cantor Harrison and my father about some of my mom's history, so I won't go over some of those details about her life, but I did want to kind of share with you some of the things that at least I experienced growing up with Mom, and some of the things that I know she was able to share with me and impart to me, and I think really made me, to a very large degree, the person I am today. As you heard already, she had a difficult childhood, and she never talked about it very much. She would give us enough clues to know that it was difficult, but she never used that as an excuse, and instead really used that to instill really close bonds of love and trust and support in our family. It would have been easy for her to replay that dynamic, which is very common in families that do have issues, but that never happened, and she never used that as an excuse for anything for us growing up. And in fact, she raised me and my brother Jeremy with strong values of developing those close family bonds, and she really lived by example. And I think you've heard that theme already, that the gold lining on the inside and the outside, that was her. What you saw on the outside was who she was. There was nothing hidden from that perspective. The heart that you saw on the outside was exactly the way she was, by example, her entire life. She was a true creative also. I think you heard as a young woman, she liked to dance, and she was sort of an actress in school plays. But she really was a creative through and through, and that was the sort of thing that we felt our entire lives. And it expressed themselves in some of the careers that she had that you heard already, whether it was working as an interior decorator or selling real estate. The idea really was she used her creativity, her empathy, her love for and of creating a warm and welcoming home, not only for us, but something that she enjoyed doing for others. And I knew that's why she liked selling real estate. I knew that's why she liked decorating for others, because she wanted others to feel the same sorts of things that she wanted for her own family. She was fiercely intelligent. She had such strong opinions on life, on culture, on humanity. I always admired that and was inspired by her desire to make a difference in the world, because that's really what she wanted. She never preached it. And as I mentioned, she just lived it by example. And it was infectious, and you couldn't help but pick up on that and want to do better, want to be a better person just being with her. She had such a huge heart, as you've heard already. In addition to caring for me and Jeremy growing up and ensuring that we always felt loved and felt safe and we had what we needed. She still had enough to do those things about, with being a caseworker for DYFS and running the family companion program and reading to kids in the inner city, right, who were underprivileged. She had that much love and generosity that she just wanted to continue to give like that. She never forgot the little things that made us feel loved as a family and to feel special. Whether it was us, it was, her grandkids, she would drop anything to ensure everyone was taken care of. It didn't matter what she was doing, what struggles she may have had, none of that mattered. She would drop it in a heartbeat to ensure everyone else was cared for. I mean, she was the consummate host, not only to, friends, as you well know, I'm sure, but also to her family. Even to, her last days, when we would visit her in the memory care unit, when it was difficult for her to speak, it was difficult for her to just get the words together to form a sentence, she would be ensuring and worried that we were okay. Did we have lunch, right? Or is it okay that you're missing work or whatever else? I mean, that's who she was. Her cooking really was her love language, as I think you've heard also. And Thanksgiving was her favorite holiday. And, despite family members with numerous and frankly ridiculous dietary restrictions amongst all of us, she always seemed to make it perfect. She always seemed to get it right. And that was her expression of love to us. It really was. And even as she got older and her body wouldn't always cooperate with her, it didn't matter. She figured out a way because that was how she expressed her love. And her back would be aching and she, would need to sit and she wouldn't accept the help because this was how she expressed that love to us. Again, you've heard her 5 grandchildren were really everything to her. I can tell you all of them couldn't wait to visit and spend time with her. And I think they would be the first to tell you that they would feel like the most special people in the world. After Melody lost her mother to cancer a few years ago, I think Mom really became Melody's second mom. She shared and entrusted with Melody little-known secrets about her family history. I think I mentioned she didn't really talk about it much, but she shared it with Melody and a lot of her life challenges. And I know that's something Melody really cherishes because it was not something that she shared lightly. And that means a lot to me, too. So, when we tell the story of Mom, we can say that every chapter was really filled with wonderful experiences. She truly lived a full life. She was fortunate to be able to travel the world with my dad. She shared wondrous stories of the sights that she saw and the culture she experienced. And, one of the things that we could say, and if we kind of look at her life as a book and a story, it would be easy to kind of look at the end as a tragic ending. But I'm going to offer an alternative view of that. That huge and caring heart that she had, she would always carry that worry and anxiety that her family and friends were okay, that they were healthy and happy and being cared for. And that was always there, right? I mean, growing up, even with, my brother, she would ensure that we were talking enough. Even if we were talking enough, it was never enough. And she would plant the guilt like nobody else could. But that was just who she was. And that anxiety was always there, then ensuring that everybody was okay and that the family was close and the bond was there. So one of the, if you want to call it a benefit or an upside of the dementia and her weakened mental condition, it actually freed her a lot of those anxieties without robbing her of her love or empathy or her feelings, just the burdens associated with it. And what replaced a lot of that worry was a lot of humor and a lot of lightness and a lot of wit. which I think made her happy in many respects, because she wasn't burdened with that, and she could just have all that emotion feeling without feeling those anxieties. She laughed more. She was hilarious. I mean, she had jokes I never thought she could tell. So I share that with you so that when you do think of her at the end, consider that also, and consider that as, you know, one of the odd benefits of the condition that she was in. On Friday, Melody and I went to her room at the memory care unit to take her stuff out. And we had bought her a little radio that she kind of kept playing, you know, 24/7, or at least we kept it playing 24/7 because she really liked the music in the background. So if there's any remaining questions of the wonderful person my mother was, when we walked in, it was just on the radio. Billy Joel's Only the Good Die Young was playing. So as we remember and celebrate the life of Mom, I want to just conclude with some words from the Persian poet Rumi. Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because for those who love with heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation.
Okay. I met Rochelle when I was 21 years old. Reflecting back, I was in need of a mother, and she truly became that to me. And just like a real mother, and especially when I was younger, I might have got annoyed with her or frustrated or disagreed with her. But what I had never experienced before was I felt safe, I felt heard, loved, and accepted. I could be me. I could be me when I didn't know who that was yet. She was there along the way to help me figure it out. As a young woman and more importantly for me, a mother. Okay. I walked in as an outsider, and I was brought into her circle, this circle. This outer circle, where you have all celebrated with each other, such beautiful and exciting moments, such great life events, my life events, our life events, as well as the very difficult ones. This circle handled Rochelle's rapid changes with the utmost respect, gave her dignity, were inclusive, had fun with her, and most importantly, were supportive and loving to her and to Alan. We are forever grateful. And to our inner circle that Rochelle and Alan created us. She taught us by example how to show up for one another. The beauty from this horrible disease, kind of how Dan said, was what can we find in it? Takeaway was the switching of roles, and it was our turn to take care of her. I'm proud my children witnessed this, how their grandfather had always had patience for her and took the time with her and loved her, and they got to see what a true marriage is. He always showed up and was there for her. I'm proud of my husband, with Jeremy, for always making it a priority. We made it a priority to be part in helping. I'm proud of how my children and my nephews, their grandbabies, her doll babies, always adjusted to her, always with love, respect, and kindness. I'm forever grateful to Dan and Melody for always showing up, especially when the weight of it fell more heavily on them. And I'm proud of us for getting through difficult choices that we all might not have agreed on. But you taught us well, and we came together as a family, and we stayed together as a family. Rochelle took from a difficult childhood and created this community, this family of stability that she had always needed. She did something with her pain and brought about change for others. Her life's work as a social worker was devoted to the underserved, underprivileged, and for those who needed a voice, and was fiercely devoted to creating the family that she never had. And I told her last week, you are so truly loved. I mean, isn't that the making of a life well lived? A Jewish life, one of true relationships, connections, trying to do good and doing what is right, always, and nothing else matters. In this moment, I thought I wanted to collectively remember, we've all kind of been talking up here, but to remember why we all loved her so much. If we wanted, maybe I'll think of a word or a phrase that comes to mind when we say Rochelle or Nana, our mother, our friend, our wife. I'll go first. I'm going to say devoted. If anyone wants to go ahead. Girls. Anyone else? Right. Welcoming. Yeah. Now, how lucky are we to be in her circle?
Shadows falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly called when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la, la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la, la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream. Keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Rabbinic tradition teaches that the tears shed at the passing of Adam Kasher are so precious to God that God counts each and every one of them and stores them in a divine treasure house. We may ask, what's an Adam Kasher? Why not an Adam Chashuv, an important person, or an Adam Gadol, a great person? When the word kasher is applied to a human being, it implies integrity, goodness, a life lived in the spirit of Judaism. It includes a life of involvement with family, service, and respect. I think we can all agree that God's treasure house today is overflowing with tears. We rise now for the traditional memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochen b'mromim, hamitzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malut kedoshim u'tohorim, k'zohar ki hamazhirim, et nishmat Rachel bat Shmuel u'Miriam, שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, אנא בעל החכמים, אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the soul of Rochelle Pepper, who has now entered eternity. May her repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let her find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May God be her inheritance, and may she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. Interment follows this service immediately at Locustwood, and Rochelle's family will be sitting Shiva at Allen's home at 3 Lumber Mill Lane through Monday evening. There will be Shiva Minyanim, Shiva services there both tonight and Monday evening at 7 p.m. The family does ask that you visit in time for worship. Thank you.